Titans roam the world, avatars of the elements, changing the landscape as they pass through it. The sentient races of the world strive together to herd and corral these giants, attempting to protect their civilizations as they can. The savage dragon mercenaries are one such expert at Titan wrangling, but it is a difficult task. Only the greatest see action on the front line. These are the stories of recruits striving to prove themselves worthy. These are the hallowed tales of their heroism. Good morning. Welcome. We have two newbies here for the stream. Dan playing Erickson and Johnny playing Thornfoot. Guys, tell us, what kind of brought you into this gameplay for today? What this group into the Jeremyverse? What has drawn you into playing with us?
Dan, you
go at once. Johnny, let's start with you.
Oh, me? Okay. Well, I've been a fan of D&D for a while. I'm just chatting with Alex about it a ton. We both really liked the idea of doing a game together. We'd brought it up, and then he mentioned that you guys wanted to do this, and I was excited to hop in, and yeah. And then it's interesting to step back because I've only ever really done 5e, so doing a base of 3.5, like I know we're doing it kind of loosely, but that's exciting. So
very nice.
Same kind of thing. I know I did 3.5 in college, and I always liked D&D. I just haven't had a chance to play it as often as I'd like. So getting a chance to actually play again is nice.
Yeah, it's kind of fun. That's our conversations between me and Alex we've had is we just wanted to play again. It's just been fun to play again.
Yeah.
So you've both made new characters.
Mm-hmm.
How did you go about picking your own characters? Like, how did you get your race? How did you pick your class? What did you want to look at? Did you have something ahead of time, an idea you wanted to fit, or did you just kind of wing it?
I went with. I kind of had an idea ahead of time, but I mainly got influenced while I was designing my own homebrew world. Actually, I really like the idea of the little underdog sticking together, which in this case, my character being a goblin, he's being a monster, he's frowned upon by most races, and he kind of wants to step up and help make that change with what's going on in the world. So yeah, he's a ranger who kind of just stepped up and is going to try to join for getting them Titans.
Dan, what kind of stuff were you looking at?
I like dwarves, always have, so I figured I'd do a dwarf, and I figured I'd step out of my comfort of fighter or rogue and try a cleric for the first time.
Okay.
So I kind of like the cleric in Vox Machina. So
all right.
Well, I'm not that person, but
I've never really played with rogues in games, and then all of a sudden these last sessions, like these last couple of groups I've been in, all of a sudden, like in my world, there's 2 clerics. Now you're in one of them, so you're the 3rd cleric I've had to play with. I just think it's interesting to see how like people see their cleric characters.
Yeah.
I always like the idea that you don't have to follow that like super strict religious figure. As a cleric or a paladin, people tend to play him pretty stiff for a long time.
Yeah.
And I'd really like to kind of see the way people make workarounds that make more realistic characters that aren't always just pious and.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'd never played a caster, I would never play a cleric, and then I ended up playing a paladin of Bohemia, and I had a lot of fun with it. It's very out of my normal play style.
Yeah, that's what brought me into this one. I'm intrigued by it because I never did spellcasters before, but I kind of liked. I'm looking at trying to set one up with my son Oliver and my wife because he's interested in some of it, and they both chose spellcasters, and so I'm like, you know what, I wouldn't mind trying something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I do agree. I like the. I think too often they're construed almost in that paladin-like aspect, where it's like I have to do these things, and I kind of like that idea of having an overarching earthy feel to it.
Yeah. Do you see yourself being led more by your faith as a character? Like, are you looking more to the church he serves, or are you looking more to his own decision making, his own input?
I think I'm going to do more my own input. I know I saw, I was reading the book a little bit more, and there's actually a component to it where you don't actually have to choose a specific deity or anything else like that. And so I think I'm just going to go almost as just that wandering holy man thingy.
Okay.
I think I'm going to look more into it and stuff.
I like
So-
the extremes. I like the guy who's all on his own. I have faith. I trust in my faith, and that's why I don't have to worry about it all the time. And then the guy who's like always got to pray and like, I don't know what my God would have me do at this point. What am I going to do?
Yeah.
I think the middle ground is where you get boring.
Yeah.
That was one of my favorite things about that movie, The Book of Eli.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it wasn't this strict, pious, by the faith of the church, I gotta ask God everything. He just lived in the grace of God, and yeah. That's what a paladin should be.
Yeah, I think that's always interesting.
I agree.
And literally, like, if you go back and say, I have faith, and then it only shows up in a fight, it makes you a boring character. You either got to pick a path and stay on it. You either bring it up all the time, or even if it's just well, in my work as a cleric here, I've done X, Y, and Z, and I really feel that it motivates my life, and that's why I do this. Or just never mention it. We are adding in here our third player, Conwick Cinder Earth. I like that name.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Random
Mr.
generators
Cinder
are
Earth.
great.
Yes, they are. We are just doing kind of like some interview questions, getting into our characters, how we did it. We just asked kind of, how did you pick like your race, your class? Where did you get this character idea from?
I've always chosen some of the larger character classes. This time I wanted to be kind of a small guy, sneak around, be able to maneuver throughout the environment. Also really wanted to play a spellcaster, more of a blaster class rather than a support class.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. So they don't know what you've picked to play with. Actually, I don't think Thornfoot and Erickson, did you say what you were playing as? Other than a cleric and a ranger?
I mentioned
I said I was a dwarf, and he mentioned goblin.
Are we a party of shorties?
Yeah, it's like a
think
little
so.
midget brigade.
I like it.
Oh, I guess what are you playing as?
I am playing as a halfling.
Awesome.
Nice.
The shortest of the shorts.
Gnomes.
Gnomes. Are gnomes shorter than halflings? I think in the character art they're usually taller than.
Yeah, I think they're. I gotta look it up.
It doesn't matter enough, realistically. Except for humor.
I'll have you know I am 3 feet 2 inches. Oh.
Halflings are usually 3 feet. Gnomes are usually 3 to 4 feet.
I knew Thornfoot was going to come up with it. I saw it. It's funny
like
because
it.
Thornfoot's 3.5 feet.
Eh.
And I thought it was funny that he got that specific with it. Like 42.3 pounds.
I have fun making characters.
No, that's great.
I think it's interesting that most games that I'm in, either everybody's tall or short. You don't get a lot of, I'm average height. I blend into a crowd.
Yeah.
I think it makes it more interesting, though, to go one way or the other. A mix is nice. A spread is good. Like, even if you just have everybody's fairly normal, but you have a giant or somebody small. But having a whole group of people who aren't big makes it
Need
very
someone
interesting.
small enough to shove into the hole and someone tall enough to reach to shove him in the hole.
Yes. It's great to play in a team that can pull off 3 kobolds in a trench coat as a disguise.
Yeah.
Nobody will ever suspect it.
So, Dan, have you looked in the Complete Divine?
I have not looked at that. I need to probably do that one. Let me see if I can find it.
If you, it's pretty easy to get a PDF up.
I was showing him all the stuff on online that he could go through. He was getting a lot out of that.
I've currently gone through 4 different PDFs to try and find spells.
Yeah,
That's a good one.
The only thing is like it's easier to go online to like an SRD or something, because it'll all be compiled in one spot. You don't have to search through all the books.
I've tried, and the one SRD I found does not have all of the book's worth of spells. It has a good chunk of them, but it is missing some of the minor ones.
So when you're building your character, do you often look at yourself as fighting with monsters or fighting against people? Like, what do you look at?
Do you mean in terms of like how I pick their abilities in terms of fighting style?
Yeah, just when you
Like, how
look
do you imagine
forward with
them?
this character, how do you imagine? Like, I picture my character, my Goliath, as a rogue hiding from all the people, even though half the time he hides from monsters. But I picture him going against humanoids.
Gotcha. I'd say it'd be a fair mix, being a goblin, but mainly geared towards monsters, just because of the ranger.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't think I ever think about that when I'm creating my character. So no, I've always considered them your average Joe kind of a person.
Okay. So how does my average Joe become a cleric and get caught up in Titan wrangling? I realize this is something that, you know, in role playing will come up as between the characters discussion, but you know, like for here as you building it, how do you justify your background?
Yeah, so with mine, what I've started to think about is since my domains are travel and Earth, and I know we talked a little bit when I started making them of like venerating the Earth elementals or something like that. But I think I'm looking for. I've read a lot where people talk about. There's one interesting one I saw where they talked about dwarves are actually created out of the stone, like other people will, or other dwarves will make them and imbue them with laws and stuff like that to create the dwarf. So I like that idea. And so I think my guy's basically searching for like the first stone or something like that is what I've started to kind of do that. And then he's just exploring and traveling as he's doing it, trying to rein in, I think, the different elementals and stuff like that.
Okay. I like that.
I don't
That
know if
plays
that
in
makes
very
sense.
well with this world. Going for the first stone. That's an interesting character trait.
No, I do like that a lot. I'm already writing stuff.
That is by far our favorite DM technique of the players say something, it's like, yeah, no, that's definitely what's happening. I just created that months ago, right now.
Exactly.
Mr. Cinder Earth, how do you look at yourself coming across as your spellcaster? Like, what brought you to it? What brought you to Titan Wrangling?
As I was reading more into the halfling background for 3.5 especially, it was starkly different from what I'd read in Tolkien works, where the D&D ones are outgoing and they look for adventure versus just trying to hide in their little hovels. So that definitely helped the drive for Titan Wrangling. Looking for greatness, looking to become a high tier adventurer who's talked about for ages well past his own lifespan.
Okay.
Looking to prove
I
that
like
short
that.
people can be heroes too.
Right.
Little underdogs.
Right? Like, looking at, like, The Hobbit, there and back again, it's a big book for a little guy.
Yeah.
I feel like that's where you're going. So, will your character be documenting these adventures?
Ooh, good question.
That is a very good question. I hadn't thought about that yet, but it's a possibility. Could explore later on.
I can see him almost like every time you run into some traveling bard, be like, let me tell you the story. And then he just recounts everything in his life up to that moment. Like, here, go spread the story. Excellent. How do you see yourselves traveling around? Do you go with a mount? Do you go walking?
I purchased a pony and named it Gravel, but I don't have a saddle for it, so I just lead him. I need a saddlebags.
Yeah, mounts are interesting because it's one of those things that all the books tell you you can have, and then almost nobody ever gets one.
Oh, I
Or
got
it'll be
one.
like, oh, we've got to go out into town. We're gonna wander the wilderness. Let's buy horses now. It's like, well, what'd you do to get here? I've got a couple characters that I've made up that come with either an animal, like a dog, a pet, or a horse, just to have something in there. Because why not?
Right, traveling's a big deal, so I figured he's kind of a short, weaker guy. He's gonna need something to carry gear.
I see. I went with the dwarves don't like horses.
Takes you too far from your home.
Yeah.
Like Samwise, every time you go and get into the saddle, you're like one more step, and this is the furthest I've ever been from the ground.
Right. Well, that and I don't like. Well, I don't mind horses, but you remember in college when I tried to get on a skateboard.
And that was close to the ground.
I ended up on the ground. Yeah.
I currently do not have a mount.
Is that something you'd like to rectify? Or is that something you would just go along with? Like, oh, Thornfoot has a horse. I'll just ride that, or we'll walk side by side. You're all short.
Right.
So there's
We
no
could
reason
both
for you
ride
to
my
pick up
pony.
the pace.
Every
I can
time
see there's-
Thornfoot looks over, Cinderhearth is riding his pony. Like, damn it! If I can't ride it, you can.
I can kind of picture the ranger going, the people we're tracking are a day away. It'll take us a day and a half travel to catch them.
No, I'm good with that one for now.
That's fine. I don't see a reason you have to have a mount. I just think they're interesting.
They had a responsibility factor.
Oh yeah, well,
Yeah.
you know, Lord of the Rings. We keep referring back to that. Samwise has a horse, but they really don't bring them with them. They don't get mounts till they're out of the Shire. In fact, usually they just use everybody else's.
Yeah. Well, shoot, they even send one back when they go to Mordor.
Yep. Bill.
Yeah. Although now I need a bear or a pig.
So you're getting kind of thrust into a squad. You've been told you're part of the Savage Dragon Mercenaries. Where our story will pick up will be just after boot camp. The three of you will finish your basic training, your basic entry into the group. You're now a part of the mercenary company. How do you feel about just getting thrust into that? Is it easier for you to make a character based on something like that, or just open concept?
I think it's easier to have an idea to like gear towards because they could have been anyone before it. So we still have that like open idea, but to have a set goal, it makes it easier to kind of focus in on what do I want this character to be about.
How did it get to that point?
Right. I think it helps me build his backstory and his interests. That way, I don't end up making a character who like has a completely different mindset. Like, I want to get this accomplished in my life, but you know, the campaign doesn't always gear directly for things like that. But when you have a preset narrative of this is definitely the overarch, that helps.
Okay.
Yeah, I know. I've always been more fan of that open concept. I think as well. I'll typically take a concept, like a name or a thing, and kind of go from there. I agree. I think you have to be careful with a overcomplicated backstory that kind of makes it impossible to stay within the campaign almost.
Well, as a DM, I kind of have fun taking backstories. Like, I've got ideas for everybody's, and I'll talk to you about it because ultimately it's your story. I don't want to interrupt that. But I'll make tweaks. Like, the game I run with Jeremy, you know, he was like, he came up with the reason why he left his tribe and everything, but I came up with the reason why his tribe's looking for him.
Yeah, that character is pretty brain dead for stuff like that. Like, he's literally just wandering the world. He has one goal, and that's to hide from everybody looking for him. But he has no drive for anything else. So it's easy for me to go from situation to situation, but that doesn't help the DM with storytelling. Now, finally, he got himself in a situation where he has a goal, he has something he has to work towards. And, like, for me as the player, it feels pretty good having that build up. Now I have something to look forward to.
Right.
Conric, how about you?
I'm not sure. A lot of things that have already been stated are true for how I've built most of my characters. Having an open concept helps, but if you have a preset, this is how your parties come to be, then you can feed your backstory into how you maybe enlisted into the academy, what your character's goals are, and it definitely helps keep the party cohesive. That way you don't maybe put something or create a character that just does not mesh at all.
Does Cinder Earth have a goal in mind that he's trying to get to? Does he have like a long-term, like you've joined this group, you know you're going to be a part of the group, but he joined it for like an end goal, or is he joining it just for the experience?
As of this moment, he's joining it just for the experience.
Mm-hmm.
To gain power and experience.
Yeah. I mean, if you can wrangle a Titan, who's going to stop you?
Yep.
Will the Titans even notice the three of you?
With how I built this character, possibly not.
A lot of people out there, the argument goes back for min-maxing. How do you make a character? What makes a well-balanced character for you? Because you can't make a weakling. You can't make somebody who's ineffectual, but do you draw a line somewhere? Do you want to min-max? Does that help you with your character?
I've done both before, either min-maxing or just trying to have a balanced spread. It's fun to make someone who you can try to cover as much as possible, but I like being in a group where, like, I got this, I hope you guys can cover me here.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to stats, I asked you how'd you feel if I ended up dumping one of my stats. I ended up not doing that because I forgot how useful intelligence is in earlier editions. But yeah, like, I rolled decently, so I have a spread that makes my guy pretty good at what he does and can still fill in the gap there, here and there.
I think based on what you were saying, your background really plays into that. Like, was I just a farmer that walked onto the scene, or did I have some career abilities that I'm bringing into to show?
Yeah, for sure.
I know I've made some min-max characters in the past. I kind of like the balanced approach. I think it's better. I think it's what you're trying to get out of the game too. If you're just trying to be the best, or if it's more geared towards one particular thing or another, the min-max probably works. But I feel you get more out of your character, I feel, when he's balanced. Although I know we toyed with my intelligence as a dump stat.
Yeah.
I know we didn't do it.
So the way that we had everybody roll was you roll your stats in order, 4d6, drop the lowest roll. But with 3.5, your stats are really important. Like, if you don't have wisdom, you can't be a cleric. It doesn't help. And so we allowed everybody, you could keep one dice roll on one stat, and you could switch two of them around. And so Erickson was going to have a high wisdom and a through-the-floor suboptimal intelligence. And it just made him inoperable as a character because he didn't have any skills. He couldn't do anything.
Yeah.
It makes him more interesting, but less useful.
Have you ever seen The Good Doctor?
No?
Nope.
It's a show about this dude with autism, super awkward, but super genius when it comes to, like, medical things. He always wanted to be a doctor and a surgeon, and so it's how he becomes one. And that's what I just thought of. It's just like, he has all the knowledge and knows how to apply it, but no ability to, like, communicate clearly with other people.
See, and that's kind of what I said, too. I put him as he's a guy who just spouts off all these wise sayings and then has no idea how to apply them to real life.
But I do agree with Dan, like, if you're running a one-shot and you guys are only getting together this one time, yeah, min-max it, just make them heroes, whatever. But, like, in a long-term campaign, I feel it's better to just roll it naturally. Whether it ends up even, you're maybe good at some things and bad at other things, and see how you can build the character you want around those flaws. That's the interesting part, and it adds more to the game. You get more out of the character. It's our flaws that, push us.
I would definitely have to say for my current character for this campaign, it's more balanced because I'm not quite as familiar with 3.5. So it was I'm gonna keep everything in the medium realm and see where this takes us. For prior campaigns, where in 5e I've definitely made my fair share of min-maxed characters.
And there's nothing wrong with having an extreme specialist, right? Like, they're super strong, they have all this stuff. Because you're making heroes, especially at a certain level, you are like world famous. And most average shows don't make it that. I like to look at the min-max. I don't remember what the anime series I was watching was, but the one character, all she can do is cast one spell. It's an explosion, and as soon as she casts it, she passes out and takes like a 2-hour nap. But it makes it really interesting because they're like, we need to win this fight. She's like, I've got this, guys. Boom. Alright, I'm done.
Bring me my blankie.
Yes. Are there any kind of things that you want to see pulled into this campaign? Or are there any kind of things you wish to avoid at all costs? We're taking notes.
I don't want to die.
Tough shit.
I'm really just looking forward to a good roleplay and good combat, and I don't want to shy away from anything. Like, I'm good with whatever gets thrown at us. Whether it's you need to make the smart decision of you need to run or you need to stand your ground. Like, it's fun to figure that out on our own.
At what point in an encounter would you decide that, hey, we can't win this, or we shouldn't fight this, or we should just be running?
Does a 19 hit? No, a 19 misses.
Yeah, I could see
That being said, where does your character come with it? That's meta, which is fine. The meta gaming is good. Like, I know these things. It's fair play. But where does your character go? Ooh, I swung my sword and missed, or my spell just fizzled. I gotta go. And do you leave everybody?
Sometimes, yes, you do leave everybody. When you notice the clear difference in either, mechanical-wise, action economy, or roleplay-wise, you're just outmanned, outnumbered. If others aren't recognizing that as the problem and staying, it's like, I'm choosing to just die beside you, and I can tell. So, be like, it's time to go, and hopefully they go.
So here we have you set up in a squad. You're part of a mercenary company, you're part of a squad. How do you go back the sole survivor? What do you say?
I told them to run. They didn't listen.
They should have been slightly taller.
Hey.
So you don't want to die. That's fair. I have seen people who wanted to play with characters that they wanted their characters to die. First session goes off, they realize, oh, this is not what I thought it was going to be. Kill me now, let me start over. But then as they get stuck with it, they kind of grow on it. Are there any kind of specific things like, man, I hate it when we get into cave diving, mountain climbing, water battles are the worst. I would like to avoid them.
No, but to be fair, I also haven't had as much experience as a player. So my real experience to go off is when I'm DMing, and I feel like it kind of turned into a slog. But that's really only when everyone's not on the same page, I guess, during combat.
Okay.
And things like that. But that's obviously something that gets rectified just over time of, okay, I know what my character can do, I can get it done without waiting.
So we're putting some implementations down on combat. You don't just get an infinite amount of time. We're doing this in front of a theoretical live audience. We're on a rundown. we've modified combat. We modified a lot of this stuff. You know, while we'll still be using initiative and turn-based, how much do you see your characters interacting to coordinate the combat? I'm going to do this, so you do that. And how do you determine who's that leader in that situation?
I think it just depends on what you're doing at the time.
Yeah.
You know, I think you're typically going to have one character who ends up taking the lead, but it's sort of like each one of us has our own specialty components. And so I think it's important for the group to be able to sit there and say, I don't think that's going to work. Let me try this or something like that.
Yeah. Well, basically, to try and keep things moving, what Jeremy was talking about is at the beginning of combat, I'll give you about 2 minutes to strategize, but anything after that is going to require like a bonus action or something to yell out, because too often during combat we stop and everybody discusses how that person should react, and it slows everything down, and you should know how your character reacts.
Yeah.
So in order to try and keep it moving for the flow of the live stream, it's a 2 minute like strategy session at the beginning of combat, and then each person will have about 30 to 45 seconds to make their decision or just have it made for them.
Inactivity is a decision in itself.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes you hesitate.
When I first came up with a concept for this, my pitch for it was that combat in most social situations would be, if you don't have an answer, we move on. The monster takes a turn. The NPCs get really nervous that you're just standing there staring at them. In an Optonauts campaign that I was running with everybody, they got to a point where they haven't cohesed as a team yet, and they're interrogating a mayor, and they just stare at him and go, "Tell us the secrets," and he's like, "I did." "Well, tell us again." And it's just an awkward. The NPCs can't respond. Like, they don't get to be dynamic like you guys. I'm not spilling the beans just because you don't have an answer. And we're going to push a lot of that on you guys here. I don't know what I'm going to do. Next roll of initiative, next person. We're going to keep moving. We'll come back to you, and we've seen movies, we've seen stories, we've seen real life situations where
People lock
somebody
up.
doesn't know what to do, and the world just keeps revolving around them. Somebody else takes a mesh, they get knocked to the side, they take damage, they fall, they get kicked out, whatever it is. Everybody else can keep going, and they can play catch up if they try.
I definitely feel as if things will start to flow more naturally as we get to know the capabilities of each other's characters.
Yeah, definitely.
And the strengths, the weaknesses, limits some of us may have, explosive radiuses others might have, things of that nature could help combat flow and help guide choices like, hey, should I move to this location and attack this guy, or should I leave it open for now in case somebody else has a better move or a better plan.
Yeah, I think we'll probably be holding you guys to a little bit of, once you say it, it's done. Like, I swing my sword. No, wait. You said it. That your character, your first thought was, I'm going to swing my sword. We're going to hold you to that. Swing it. Maybe you can guide it a little bit better.
Something I've done, like at our person table, to kind of cut down that they keep trying to strategize metagaming to slow down together is, if it's your turn, you can talk, and then whoever you're talking to can respond. But if it's not your turn, just don't start talking.
Yeah.
It's helped.
I think that's one thing that gets left out a lot until you have a group solidified, even as players or as characters, is there's no conversation, there's no talk about it. Hey, we're fighting wolves, watch out for their pack mentality, like watch out for them sneaking behind you. how much do you play a character is I just want to get the kills. It's kind of funny, to have a character who snipes the kill at the end, but every combat, I'm getting all the kills. You guys just get trampled on. Doesn't necessarily work.
Right.
So how much do you yell at each other? Or how important is it to steal that kill?
I guess that depends on what the character you're playing.
Yeah.
But I'm fine with flavor text. Like, you guys want to talk a little bit of shit to the monsters or, like, each other during a fight. But it's the strategizing between rounds that really slows it down.
Yeah.
A lot.
Mm-hmm.
Which, especially with new players or a new system, it's going to happen at the beginning. I got no problem with that. But once we start picking it up, I'm going to be more stringent about that rule.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I've given the DM total control over that. If I have to step in to veto anything, I'm probably just going to step in on the DM side. He says, you guys had a chance, this is what's happening, this is what's going on. You're just kind of stuck.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
So Thornfoot, how long have you been playing role-playing?
How long have I been role-playing? I think since 2014.
Okay, good amount of years, yeah.
Yeah. I
was gonna say, I'm not even sure, like, when 5th Ed came out, because at that point I'd kind of
2014.
stopped and stepped away from it because my group had broken up, and I'm just now picking it back up in the last year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my first session was technically Pathfinder, but then like 1 or 2 sessions later we switched over to 5e because it had just come out, and my friend was like, hey, let's do this instead. So I was like, cool, I just want to play.
Yeah. What about Cinder? Go ahead, sorry.
I was just going to say, now I'm way too invested, but go ahead.
Yeah.
That's the trick, is we keep putting money into these things. I've got 6 RPGs I paid for that I have to play still. We'll get there.
Yeah, that's
Mr.
how
Cinder,
D&D.
how have you been doing? Like, how did you get into role-playing? How long have you been doing this?
Definitely not that long. I'd say maybe 2020, maybe 2021.
Mm-hmm.
During the height of the lockdowns, my younger brother actually started picking up more books and learning how to DM. So I was like, hey, I'll learn, and if you want to DM, I'll be one of the players.
The perfect social distancing. Do you play RPGs? No? Oh. And then it's just done. Everybody avoids you forever. So, Mr. Erickson.
Every time he tries to talk, his dog is just like, no.
Not today.
Yeah, that's the problem with the Great Journey.
Let me sing you the song of my people.
Right. So I started, I guess, my Uncle Chris got us started with Hero Quest back in the early 90s. And I've kind of been in and out of those different styles of it. I know Jeremy and I were in a campaign with under Will for 3.5, and then we did a couple different ones of Shadowrun with another individual we were with, and then I've done Pathfinder twice. That's kind of that one. So I've had a desire for it, but it's one of those things where it will be a flash in the pan where it will be good for a little bit, and then all of a sudden everybody just dissolves.
I like how you said we played under Will. Like, Will is this overarching entity that everybody's aware of.
That's true.
I just like it. It was just an interesting way to say that. But you're right. That's how we started.
Yeah.
In fact, for Dungeons and Dragons, we played together with Will, who lived in the dorms with us, and then the next time I played, Dan was my GM.
Yeah.
And that was probably the campaign for D&D that I saw the most character growth, the most character play, the most in-depth role play I've seen in D&D. Like, I mean, there's other groups out there that do fantastic well, but for like my own personal playing, that was like, oh, it doesn't have to be about the fight. It can be about the talk. It can be about the stuff in between. I think we only got into like 3 encounters, and we played for months.
Yeah. I did love that Goblin of yours, though.
Speak?
Yeah.
Or no, that was Squeaky. I'm sorry, Squeaky.
Yeah, Squeaky.
Yeah. I still have my character sheet. He's not dead.
There you go.
Yeah, I got started back at about 91. It was just me and my one friend Dan for years. We were playing advanced Dungeons and Dragons. Actually, I think we started with the original because I still kind of remember Thaco. But yeah, it was just me and him mostly through elementary school and junior high or whatever. And then a couple other people started joining in, and then we stopped playing for a while. And then after high school, we all picked it back up, and we had a regular game for about 12 or 13 years. But it was the same group of 4 to 6 people. We just, a couple guys just kept switching out. And then when that group stopped, I hadn't played again for a long time until I started talking to Jeremy about it. I was like, I've been sitting in a room. I work third shift. It's kind of lonely sometimes. You don't really have the social interactions that you normally would on the day shift. And I was like, I need to start doing something. And then I found people on my shift that play D&D, and it was off to the races. I dropped way too much money into D&D Beyond that now I feel stuck. And I wish I'd have just bought the hardcover books, but I was in such a hurry to get my hands on the information. But now we're reverting back to a system where I owned everything, and I'm happy. Or at least, like we're referencing it a lot, trying to build our own thing.
Yeah. I didn't get started until mid-2000s with D&D 3.5. And it took me forever to realize what like the 0.5 really meant on it. Like that's where I fell in. But it's been interesting trying to organize this because half the players are like, "Oh yeah, I started with 5th edition. It came out. It was exciting, cool." And the other half of the people I talked to were like, "Well, I haven't played since Magic the Gathering first came out." It's like, "Oh, wow." Do they carbon date your birth certificate or just take you at face value?
Yeah, it's really interesting stepping back, because it's more complex, which, usually things tend to get more in-depth and involved as they grow.
As they evolve, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't expect the simplification to be that much in 5e. I knew it was from what I had been told. Like, they made it easier and more beginner-friendly, but going back to 3.5, I'm like, I almost want to implement half of this into my 5e game because it actually goes in depth on what you can do and how it works.
Yeah.
So as a
5e
player... Oh, go ahead, DM.
5e is great for like getting new people into it because it is a bit simplified and it makes it easier to introduce them to certain concepts, the role formulas and attacks and reactions and conditions. But like 3.5, they were at it for so long, it just has so much material into it, and it's just more in depth and more customizable, I feel.
Yeah.
So you brought up kind of an interesting point here of pulling stuff in, which we're doing for sure in this campaign. Excuse me. I drank too much. We're changing the rules as players. Is it off-putting to not necessarily know all the rules 100%, is it okay to have some discrepancies? Do you like some surprises like, oh, I didn't think it'd go that way. That's pretty good. Or is it like, man, this makes me uncomfortable. I don't know what to expect. This could go any way. I don't like it. Where do you kind of fall in there?
For me, it's I'm kind of excited because like I like the idea of, you know, I want to try to do this, and I know like DMs are pretty good at like, all right, you're gonna do it by doing this in terms of rules. So like I'll role play out what I want to do, and whatever I need mechanically, I trust I could get from the DM. So for me, it's fun, and then there could be surprising consequences or rewards, you know, in terms of it worked and this happened. So I like it.
Cinder Earth?
That's where I was going to go too.
What, right to me? Because I'm super unfamiliar with 3.5?
Teamwork. we just know that you really like to bend the rules.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Actually, John's pretty unfamiliar with 3.5. I mean, Thornfoot. There. This is his introduction to it too.
Yeah. But no, not even
grasp
necessarily
of what it is.
3.5 though, Cinder Earth. Like, just you as a player in general. Like, is there a spot where you're like, okay, no, DM, you have changed things too far. This is no longer a fun thing to play, or is it like, I like getting the constant surprises?
Trying to wrap my head around the question. I'd have to say, yeah, I do like surprises. Obviously, playing rules as written can be kind of restrictive, or if it inhibits players' fun, then obviously it could be an issue. But not knowing all the rules myself is exciting, because now I can be like, hey, I'm going to try and do these things, and I'll role play it out and just see what happens.
Right, that's where I'm at.
I'm kind of in the middle on that one. I like having the broad stroke of this is kind of what we're going with, which is like kind of like what you guys are doing, where it's like we're going to start with 3.5, but we're going to get rid of the rails, and you can go one way or the other. So I agree. I like the concept of, I'm going to try this. Let's see if they go with it this way or that way.
I like things. I like boundaries because it helps you fill out what you need to fill out. As a DM, I don't necessarily like to give my player. I like to give you a lot of leeway, and I don't like to say to somebody, you cannot do that. I think for stories, sometimes it came up with Cinder Earth and Alex here. Their characters playing together. They were trapped in a room, and they had stuff that they could do. And it's like, no, you can do that, but we're going to stop you right before you do, because for story purposes, it may not be the best idea. Because I would hate to cripple a character and take away their abilities, because that offends the character and the player. All right, it's that nightmare that everybody has where, you're ineffective, you're fighting somebody off and your punches do nothing. Like, oh, wow, great. Now I'm just ineffective in real life, in my dreams, and in my fantasy games.
Yeah, and it...
Right, take a drink for that one. Brought up real-world memories.
It's like, at what point am I just playing the game for you if I just keep restricting everything you can do so it follows the story that I built in my head? It's like, when I first started DMing, I'd build these elaborate stories and want to know every little part about it before I even started, and then they wouldn't go anywhere in the direction that needed to make that story work, and it was frustrating. And then I learned to just come up with an idea. This is kind of where I want it to go. I can see the end point, but the middle parts are basically going to be made by you guys. I just have to find a way to make it easy to quickly adapt.
Yeah. This is like writing a book where I only have half the input. Because I also, the same thing, you can plan 1,000 stories, and unless you force somebody down that track, you'll never get it. I've had several encounters in these last couple months that I've put out there that didn't go the way I thought they would. They just kind of petered out. They puffed into smoke and disappeared. And I also find myself planning against my players to an extent. It's like, ooh, they have this ability. I'm going to do this that stops that. And it's like, you know what? I can't. The encounter doesn't know what their abilities are. The world doesn't know what's happening. You got to kind of flow with it.
Yeah, I find it easier to come up with the stories that have already been told in this world and let you guys make the ones that we're experiencing.
Right.
How much do you feel that your characters will shape the story? Or are they just like the hobbits, the hapless followers along?
I don't know. That depends if he lives, you know.
Time will tell.
Time will tell on that one. He has the ambition to make an effect on the world, though. If not for himself, then for the tribe that raised him.
I can see Mr. Cinder said something similar of, you know, he's a little guy and he wants to have that be a big story that lives beyond his generation. How much do you see yourself forcing that?
I don't see him trying to force it.
Just trying to
But-
manifest it.
Yeah,
Yeah, just
manifest.
trying to
Think
bring
about
it
it.
forth. How interactions with other NPCs go, maybe how the dice fall. My choice of words would all, I guess, impact that. But Cinder Earth will definitely be doing everything within his power and means to at least put his impact on the story, maybe not drive it in a certain direction.
We, Dan and I, when we played Shadowrun, we played with the concept of martyrdom. If you had a character that was going to die, or you had a chance to save someone else, would you play your character to save himself? Or is it one of those things where, you know what, if it saves the team, I'll take the bullet. My character is going to do that heroic action at the end there. I guess that
Well,
wasn't
no,
a real
it-
good question.
It's character based, I guess we're all asking, but like in the game you play, it didn't start off that my character was selfless for other people, but as he started to find the party and care about them, now he literally tries to put himself between anything that's going to go after anybody that he cares about. So he would be the martyr. He probably would sacrifice himself if it meant that they could live or succeed in whatever we're trying to do. I guess it depends on the importance of it.
Right, I would see that as a character development thing. Like, for most of my characters I've ever made, is like they're not all heroes to start with, but as they get closer and maybe the stakes get raised, like, yeah, maybe they will make the sacrifice play after a while. They'd grow into that.
Now, we played it where the martyr, if you truly martyred a character, you got advantage on your next character creation. Do you think that's a good idea on something like this? Or does that encourage player death too often?
think that could encourage player death too often. But that also depends on the player, because I personally have players at my table who get bored of their character and then maybe I'll make sure he dies, and it's like,
Yeah, I think it would have to be a situational thing.
right.
Yeah, you can't just have somebody who jumps in front of every single bullet and brings up a new character.
Yeah.
I recently ran into that in the game that I'm running with Jeremy. One of the guys, he was like, I don't really like this character. Can I just kill it? And I was like, if you don't want to play in my game, I'm like, if he dies, he dies. But if you're out there just like throwing yourself in front of everything, trying to get him killed, then I don't need you in my game.
Right. Because that's not fun. That's not story development.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's say you've martyred or died, whichever way it happens. As you make a new character, assuming we let you back in after your foolish actions, how much do you take from your previous play in this campaign into forming a new character? Or do you just back all the way up and say, I'm going to start a new guy, take him from the beginning, and he's going to have to be odd man out for a while?
The latter option on that one for me. Work his way in.
I definitely use what I'd learned throughout the sessions in helping me better build a character. But I agree with Thornfoot. It would be you're now unfortunately the odd man out. This whole group has cohesion going, and you now have to find where you fit.
Yeah, I agree with that. I would use the background I've developed for the game system, but the character himself would be the odd man out. My son and I have started watching the Clone Wars, and there's an episode where Rex is helping retake a base, and he calls the troopers that he meets shiny because they haven't earned, they're still green. And if we do end up dying and making a new one, I think we need to realize that our characters are shiny again, and we kind of have to earn our stripes.
No, yeah, I like that.
Yeah, they have their fancy new armor. Shiny.
Now, turn that around. You're the survivors. You have an emptiness, you have an opening in your squad, somebody's being brought up. Do you just accept them? Do you put them through the paces? Do you haze them? Like, how do you move on? I realize that part of it will be as you play, how you've grown your character. But as the player, how would you look at that?
I mean, that sometimes is the hard part about, like, when one person dies, bringing the next one in. It's a lot easier just to accept them and move on than try to force this social interaction that might hold up the story for a few minutes. But it's really in those moments where you're kind of forced to stop and role play that out. Like, they don't have to be best friends, but it's way too easy just to accept and move on than... So you don't see it happen very often where people actually stop and, like, build this new relationship with this new character.
I personally kind of like as you build back into the group, you found somebody and like, oh, what are you doing here? And you don't trust them, you kind of halfway it for a little while. I did really like in the campaign Alex hosted, we had a guy jump in. And his character just said, we're doing this as a team. And everybody just went along with it like he'd been there forever. And it worked hilariously well for the one session we were able to do it in. I think you can do something like that. But
It could also be the new person that's coming in. Are they really charismatic? Are they really empathetic? Does the player play them as, hey, I realize I'm the new guy, and you guys might still be reeling from the loss, but I'm here now, and let's do what we can?
Yeah.
Or is the new person just going to be really shy and reserved and just kind of be there as an extra cog in the machine?
Right. Yeah.
I kind of see it as the Sandlot, where the old characters never gone, but you just add the new one into the rotation. But they were still, I think, giving the new kid a little bit of guff every once in a while is good, but they still accepted them and said, all right, what can I do to help you? You need to relearn this or something like that.
Yeah.
I can see that. I can also see openings in this where you're part of a mercenary company. Your new character could be the sole survivor from another squad. Hey, we've got this one guy. He hid from a dragon, but at least he survived. He was smart enough to not get killed.
I told them to run. Yeah. I actually haven't experienced too much player death at my game, so it's an interesting concept I've never really had to think about is how do we incorporate someone new or being the new person incorporated in. I think we've had it once, and we unfortunately just shied over it, like, oh, he's there now.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to bounce that off of each other, and especially we're going to be a group of 3, right? Or do we have more people who are to join?
We're working on trying to get more, but
Okay, but as a group of 3, I see it as being a pretty close-knit group. Like, we'll rely on each other. Like, as more people may or may not come in, like, that could change the dynamic, but I think a party of 3 creates a unique dynamic, as opposed to a 4 or 5.
And if we do get a few sessions in, and then we do bring in new players, then we could experience, rather than a new person coming in from player death, a new player coming into an established party.
yeah.
Yeah.
So Johnny, going back to your games, like,
Yeah.
do you think that you haven't dealt with much player death because you're good at making a balanced encounter, or that because you're pulling the punches and like, because you don't want to see people get upset that their characters die, and you don't want them to have to go through all that, so you just kind of back off?
In a lot of my early games leading up to the past couple years, it has been pulling punches. Because, like, I know my wife, she falls in love with her characters, and I don't want to make her cry. So I pulled my punches. She knows I have. And they can hear you. But I haven't been doing that lately because I've gotten quite well at, like, I dropped her to 0 last night, actually, and another player, and they were all kind of scared for a little bit, and it was great.
What a power move as a spouse. I dropped your character to 0. You
Yeah.
owe me this life.
Yeah. She lived. But
So here's the question. Had she died, would you have lived?
time will tell.
Through some divine intervention, your character lived.
Yes.
No, because I do pull punches every now and then. Like, if something happened and I was completely not expecting it, I'm going to try and give you guys a way to get out. I might not pull the punch, but I'm going to definitely throw a lifeline. But when I first started, it was the same, because, like, it was just me and my one friend, and we were taking turns DMing, and it, you know, he dies. Well, might as well start over. But the longer I played, the more, I don't want to say resentful, but the more apathetic I grew towards the player's wants as far as survival. Like, I want you to survive, I want this to be a good story, but if it's time for your character to die, or if you made a mistake, then that's the consequences. And I feel like that's really made the games better.
Yeah, that's what I've been trying to go for too.
And it's always fun to bring a couple of them down to 0, let them dangle there.
Right, let them all be like, wait, did you actually balance this? I'm like, yeah, try your best.
I find myself wanting to kill my players. Like, putting them on that challenge, and then when they almost die on accident, it's like, ooh, now I feel bad. Like, I want this monster to kill you. It may not happen, but that was just a tree. I didn't think it falling on you was going to kill you. Why'd you roll so poorly?
Yeah, you guys had an encounter with a tree, and I honestly thought it was going to go better, but it almost killed everybody.
I do love reading the stories where it's like, yeah, my players, they just basically 1-2 round killed a dragon, but then they were rolling really bad against his, leftover Kobold followers, and they almost took him out.
Yeah. That's your danger in your min-max. Oops, you hit my min.
They're like, yeah, you took that dragon out in 2 or 3 rounds, but you expended so much that now these little things are just going to overrun you like a hill of ants.
Resource management is very important.
Oh yeah.
Now that we said it, I think trees have been like one of your biggest flaws. Or I've seen like where trees are killers. Alex and Cinerearth, in your campaign, you came across awakened shrubs and awakened trees, and they dealt some damage in the first couple rounds.
Yeah.
I think your saving grace was they couldn't move.
Yeah.
Trees can be scary.
Especially in the
Apparently,
dark.
Jeremy really likes swamping willows.
Apparently, what?
Jeremy really likes swamping willows. He likes to awaken the shrubbery, some of the topiary.
That's my
And they're all
favorite
hostile.
random encounter. Look, they hit
Nature's
each other,
scary
but they're
in
not close
Jeremy's
enough. If the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, it dies. There's only one shrub in this family.
I saw the D4 hit die for the sorcerer and got real nervous.
Don't go looking for firewood alone.
Yeah.
My favorite is the monsters that deal a minimum of 1 damage and a maximum of 1 damage, but there's enough of them that's guaranteed you're going to take 10 damage. Or what is the meme of you can't say I have 12 hit points left, but if 12 squirrels all attacked you, you probably wouldn't survive? We're about time to wrap up here. Do any of you have anything in closing you'd like to go? You do, or is there a topic we haven't covered that you're like, you know what, I feel like this is important to the conversation?
I have a simple question that's not super important, I feel like, to the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just curious what our boot camp consisted of.
So, as a DM, do you want me to set it up? You've done these things 100% of the way. Or would you rather build that story up yourself?
Ooh, both are interesting.
I like to give my players a little bit of leeway. Here is a step stool. Here is a thing. But you know what? Go ahead and make your own mythos for it. This was our drill camp instructor. And then it's on me to, on the back end, follow through and make that character. Whether you ever run into him again or not, or all of a sudden you run into that drill instructor and he says, I never thought you guys would get this far. Now you have to play against something you helped create.
All I can think right now is the guy who's super impressed by Gum, thinking he's a genius.
To do
I guess
whatever you do, drill sergeant.
Exactly, yeah.
Would we have all gone to the same boot camp?
We are going to say yes. You would have been in the same
Okay.
graduating class.
Okay.
Probably separate squadrons, more detailed towards your classes, but it was all the same base.
Yeah.
Right, covering like you would be good at this, so we'll make sure you can boot camp cover it that way.
Yeah, you were
And
in the
even as a
scout
player, I
regiment.
like to push that back on other players. My character running with in Alex's campaign, we were just chit-chatting, and I started telling a story and then looked at the other player and said, right, tell him how we got out of that situation. He wasn't happy, but he came up with a story. And it's kind of fun to like push that back on each other, you know?
I've been doing that a lot
A
lately.
little bit of force. Yeah. How far can you run a lie or a bluff?
We're all coming out of specialist training.
Yes.
But you also realize that you're in the lowest rung of it. You're still the grunts. You're in the tails. Like there's a hierarchy in this, and it basically breaks the dragons down by their components. Where like the head is administration, the eyes and ears are the intelligence division, claws are the main attack force, wings is air transportation, legs being ground transportation, heart is high level elite squads, the soul is the healers and the it's the healer squad. The body of it is support
Interesting.
people and the mechanics, the clerics, not the clerics but the clerks. And then the tails, being you or the grunts, you're the introductory force before you really get divided up into where you would be most useful.
And then breath weapon is magic forces.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think that's a really good point. It's a
It
really good
is
question.
now.
See, we told you we're listening. We're taking notes. Looking back, you were probably doing specialist training at your different squads or, from boot camp. So as players, as characters, you're coming up to, you've met each other, but you really know each other. How do you bring that in of, your training wasn't that hard. You didn't have to do the things we did. Or I saw what you did and that was easy. Or that was, I don't know how you did it, that was hard. I don't need an answer right now, but think about it for later on as we play, because you'll definitely, I like to give lots of opportunity for you to talk about it. If you're traveling, I'm not just going to say it takes you one day to go from this town to that town, now you're there. You're going to have to get me there a little bit. I'll give you a time frame, but...
Not going to name names, but while some of us were praying every morning, others were actually working.
Yep. Said somebody with 8 hit points.
Hey.
Look, when you're
Should've done
higher
more
than my hit
push-ups.
points, we'll talk. No, good stuff. I really like it. I'm very excited for this still. I like
Same.
your characters. The goal is to do the live play every other week. So we will be back here next weekend talking like this. The weekend after would be a gameplay day. And we, after this session, we'll be talking personally to see what time frame we can look at. Does anybody have a send off before I end the stream? This won't kick us off. It'll just get rid of the audience.
No.
A dog and a child.
What a way to end.
Yeah, everybody's awake now.
Well, with that awesomeness, we will end the stream. We will catch you all later. We look forward to hearing back from you.